Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I particularly want to say that your leadership in this committee and the Appropriations Committee is going to be so critical to the reconstruction of New Jersey, and we appreciate not only your leadership in those positions, but the leadership you've shown alongside those of us who are trying to restore the lives of New Jerseyans. And so you're critically important to our collective success for the region. And I appreciate the comments of the ranking member, Senator Wicker and Senator Nelson, as someone who has stood with the people of Mississippi and Florida each and every time that there has been an issue of devastation and recovery. I'm heartened to hear the remarks that you both made, because it's critically important to the people of New Jersey now. We don't have that experience. This is the first time we've had the experience. I've lived in the state my whole life, and I have never seen the breadth and scope of devastation that the state has faced after Superstorm Sandy. I appreciate the opportunity to give one or two dimensions of that. There are many, but for the purposes of this hearing, just to give you a sense, the numbers are staggering across the region. We lost 34 lives during the storm. It was the largest mass transit disaster in our nation's history. 4 out of 10 of the nation's transit riders, have their commutes disrupted by the storm, and many of them still do today. New Jersey Transit alone had dozens of locomotives and rail cars damaged in the flooding, miles and miles of tracks damaged. The preliminary damage estimate provided by the state is now up to about $37 billion. We're getting more damage numbers, but the toll to transportation and commerce is truly incalculable. The Port of New York and New Jersey, which really most of it is on the New Jersey side, is the mega port of the East Coast. It's a $250,000 jobs, $25 to $30 billion of economic activity for the nation, suffered widespread damage. Ships were unloading during the course of the storm, but a full recovery from the damage caused in the port is going to take much longer. The storm surge grew to 14 feet. Winds were about 90 miles per hour. More than 700 cargo containers were damaged when the surge and high winds toppled the containers onto another. In this picture, you can see that half of a Port Authority barge was lifted onto a berth in Red Hook. In Jersey City, a float was used to move railway cars, broke in half, and created significant damage. 150 feet of railroad track was washed away. Cargo handling cranes and other pieces of equipment were severely damaged. And this is also important to national security issues, because in the last BRAC round, the only water port for the military in Bayonne, New Jersey, was closed. And so the use of a commercial port for forward projection from the East Coast is the Port of New York and New Jersey. And when it cannot operate well, it is part of a national security imperative as well. The trucking industry lost about 1,000 rigs to flooding at the port and other locations where they were parked, which is about 25% of all of the truck fleet that serves the port region. About 16,000 cars were destroyed. Total loss. The tangled mess of colored metal scraps you see in the picture is a mix of cars and hundreds of motorcycles destroyed by the storm. Over 50 ships were diverted that were headed for New York and New Jersey. Those ships were carrying over 15,000 cargo containers and almost 10,000 automobiles. That's just one dimension. As far as other transportation damage up and down the New Jersey coast, the sheer scope of the damage is difficult to fathom. This next picture is the Manahawkin Bridge, which crosses Barnegat Bay and crosses Brick with Manahawkin. As you can see in the picture, the storm surge ripped a gash right through Manahawkin, and this is how some of the greatest destruction of homes in that region. Amazingly, the bridge can be repaired, but many of the surrounding homes were lost, and part of that highway will need to be rebuilt. This next picture is a shipping container and a large pleasure boat crossed onto the Morgan Rail Bridge on the North Jersey coastline, along with tons of debris, obviously killing a main artery of the state's riders. It took a lot of work to restore service on New Jersey Transit, which suffered disruptions on every rail line. And even today, as we speak, the Port Authority's PAF terminal, which is the subway between New York and New Jersey under the Hudson River, is inoperable and will not be back online for some time. Those are tens of thousands of riders every day that are affected, in which obviously not only their commutes, but the cost of their commutes has dramatically grown in the midst of a challenging economic time. Corrosive seawater rushed into the PAF stations at Exchange Place in Hoboken, and the Hoboken station may still not be reopened for weeks. So, Mr. Chairman, that's one dimension on transportation. We've lost thousands of homes. We have thousands of people who are out of a home. I'm not talking about a second home, because many people think about the New Jersey shore and they say, oh, that's about second homes. No, these are year-round communities where people have made their lives and their investments and now seen it washed away. They don't have a place to come back home to. And so that's why it's critically important of the work of this committee and to ask our colleagues, as we have stood with the people of the Gulf Coast in Hurricane Katrina and in Florida, the people of Joplin, Missouri, after a tornado ravaged their community, when the Mississippi flooded, when crops were destroyed in the Midwest, we have been there. And since this is the United States of America, we need you to be with us. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.